The Elektor Wordy Christmas Tree combines 11 circuit boards, a Raspberry Pi Pico and 27 addressable RGB LEDs to illuminate Christmas greetings in 7 languages: Danish, Dutch, English, French, German, Italian and Spanish. The Elektor Wordy Christmas Tree comes as a kit of parts that you must assemble yourself. Not counting the Raspberry Pi Pico, the kit contains 11 circuit boards, 7 of which are pre-populated with 27 addressable RGB LEDs. Together, these boards make up the 3D tree. Assembling the Wordy Christmas Tree is not complicated, but it requires some soldering and a bit of patience. This video shows a way how to build the tree, but there may be other ways. Feel free to follow your own path. Assembly of the tree starts by preparing all the boards. The LED boards come as one panel and the individual boards must be separated from each other. Do this carefully, preferably with a small sharp wire cutter to cut the PCB bridges. When doing this, avoid putting too much stress on the boards, as this may damage the solder joints of the LEDs. Once the LED boards have been separated from each other, they must be reworked a bit. This is necessary to ensure that they will sit flush between the rear and front panels. Cut where needed the remains of the PCB bridges. Use a file to smooth the bottom and top edges of all the boards. When the LED boards are nice and smooth, plug them onto the rear panel. The LEDs should face downwards. Insert the small board that has LEDs on both sides so that the side with the 2 LEDs faces down. Check if the boards are flush on the rear panel. When they are, place the backbone board. The end with the resistor on it should face down. Except for the smallest LED board, all other LED ribs are held by the backbone board. You can now solder the ribs to the rear panel. Do this by soldering the pads on the ends of the ribs to the corresponding pads on the rear panel. Don't solder all the pads of a rib unless you are sure that the rib is perfectly vertical. Rib 6 needs 2 solder joints in the middle. They are accessible when rib 7 is not in place. Rib 7, the smallest, also needs 2 solder joints in the middle, one on the bottom and one on the top side. Maybe it is easier to mount this rib before the others. When you are satisfied with the position of the ribs, solder the backbone to each rib. Every rib, except for the smallest one, has 4 connections to the backbone. Solder them all. The backbone needs 2 solder joints to the rear panel near the base and connector K1. Before going further, you may want to check if the front panel will lie flush on the ribs. If not, correct the assembly where needed. Solder the 3-way pin header at the position of K1 on the rear panel. Now is a good time to check if all the LEDs are working. For this we will use the Raspberry Pi Pico. The Raspberry Pi Pico in the kit has not been programmed. To program it, you must install the Arduino IDE on a computer with support for the Raspberry Pi Pico. Download the Arduino IDE version 2 from the Arduino website. Just follow the instructions. Download the latest version for your operating system and install it. The next step is to install the software for the Raspberry Pi Pico. This requires a few extra steps. In a browser, open the Arduino Pico GitHub page. Scroll down until you find the link shown here. Copy the link. Open the IDE's preferences. Paste the link in the additional boards box. The IDE will download a file. When done, open the Boards Manager and search for the Pico. You should find the Arduino Pico package. Install it. This may take some time depending on your internet connection. When it is ready, select the Raspberry Pi Pico board. Open the Blink example and upload it to the board. The LED on the board will start to toggle at the rate of 1 Hz. You can now create and upload programs to the Pico board. Download the programs for the Wordy Christmas Tree from the Elektor Labs website. Unpack the archives into the sketchbook folder of the Arduino IDE. You can do this as follows. Open the preferences of the Arduino IDE. Click the Browse button next to the sketchbook location. Drag the Wordy Christmas Tree folders into the file manager. Click Cancel, not Choose when done. Close the Preferences window. Now, if you go to File Sketchbook, you should see the programs. Pick one and upload it to the Raspberry Pi Pico. Solder the Raspberry Pi Pico onto the baseboard. Only 3 solder joints are required. The one labeled 39, the one next to the label Mod 1 and the square pad in the middle of the 3-pin debug connector. Solder K2 onto the baseboard. Stick the 4 silicon feet at the bottom of the baseboard. Plug the partly finished tree onto the baseboard. Connect the Raspberry Pi Pico to the computer or to a power supply. If all is well, all the LEDs will start to participate in a light show. If the light show doesn't go all the way up, then you probably missed a solder joint on the lowest non-working LED rib. If none of the LEDs lights up, then chances are you missed the solder joints that connect the backbone to the rear panel. Supposing that everything worked fine, we will now move to the last step, mounting the front panel. This is done in the same way as mounting the LED skeleton onto the rear panel. You can use as few or many pads as you want, as long as you end up with a stable tree. The final step is mounting the tree on the baseboard. For stability, the tree should not be vertical, but lean a bit backwards instead. You can fix the position of the tree with the solder pads at the base of the tree. There you are. You now have an original and festive Christmas decoration. Enjoy!